back to Mika Reacts and Reviews, where we react and review to things on the internet, same day, same shirt, different video. And today we have another non-musical video, and we are returning to our homeboy, Dr. Jordan Peterson. And today we're just going to be watching a compilation. It's called Jordan Peterson's Most Savage Comebacks Highlights Compilation. It was released 2 years ago and it has almost 7 million views and 170,000 likes, released by Trigger Happy Media. Alright, so if you like these type of videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell to get the notifications when I do upload. All of that helps with the algorithm, guys. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can also donate. My PayPal link is in the description box below and also in the comment section, but you don't have to. You can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Alright, here we go.
How much responsibility do you feel that you have, particularly to guys, the alt-right, who, as you say, some of them have enjoyed your work, and say, no, I'm not one of you guys. I'm not with you guys.
They haven't enjoyed my work.
I've definitely read bits on the internet.
Read more.
Okay, I'm not gonna stop. Just keep going.
Do you think a trans woman is a real woman?
I don't really like the way those questions are formulated. You know, I don't know what that means. What do you mean, a real woman?
Well, I'm asking you, in your mind, you know, it depends what you think a real woman is, but do you think a trans woman is a woman?
No.
Why not? Because
I think that women are capable, generally speaking, of having babies, and they have female genitalia, and they have an XX chromosome, and I think the biological markers are relevant.
I'm interested in people being able to have different choices and having equality of outcome.
Aha, well, so the overwhelming proportion of people who are in prisons are male. Now, do you want to equalize that, just out of curiosity? What about bricklayers? They're 99% male, and we've got about 3/4 of the population now in universities in the humanities and social sciences are female.
Yeah.
Are we going to equalize that? And men work longer hours, they work more dangerous jobs, they're more likely to move, they're more likely to work outside. They're more likely to participate in jobs in the STEM fields that are scalable. They make more money for those reasons. And that's all hidden under the idea that the reason that men and women make different amounts of money is because of their gender. It's a very simplistic analysis.
Okay, before I get to the next one, it is really true, because a lot of times when feminists talk about equal outcome, which you can't have equal outcome. That's like, you have to create a totalitarian world to do that, or socialist or something like socialism or something like that. You can have equal opportunities. You can't have equal outcome, because everybody has different talent and different abilities. Someone's always going to be smarter than you, better than you, prettier than you, can jump higher than you, can build better than you, can sing better than you. It's always going to be someone with better abilities. So the only way you can make equal outcomes if you basically take the person that's smarter and make them dumber, or bring them down, or force them to not ever achieve anymore. Equal outcome is like taking the tallest person and taking the shortest person, and you want them to equally be able to make the basket, so you make the taller person play basketball on his knees. It's not really possible unless you just have a fucked up society. But a lot of times when feminists talk about equal outcome, a lot of times if you notice, they only talk about things of privilege or hierarchy. They want to be CEOs, or they want to be politicians, or they want to be in charge. It's not, I want equal outcomes so I can be a plumber or electrician or bricklayer, like you said, or a garbage man, or have higher dangerous jobs, or drop out of college at a higher rate, or higher rates of suicide. You know what I mean? It's always powerful hierarchy positions. So they never talk about equal outcome until when it comes to all the undesirable positions in the world that men usually dominate in, right? And I'm talking about equal outcome when it comes to basketball players that are mostly people of color, or teachers that are mostly women, or nurses that are mostly women. They just talk about CEO or politician or power positions, which is it's pretty transparent the reason why. And the whole pronouns thing is if you notice that, or the whole trans thing, if you notice that people say real women, they don't say biological women. They say, do you think a trans woman is woman, or do you think trans women is a real woman? They don't say a trans woman is a biological woman. And that's why Jordan Peterson said he didn't like the way that was worded, or the language, because they're wording it that way for a particular reason. So you can get your aha, I gotcha little moment out of somebody. Yeah, the first one was really funny too. Let's continue.
Why are you against the use of alternate pronouns?
I'm against the use of legislation to determine what words that myself and other people are required to utter.
But would you use alternate pronouns if a student asked you to?
I think I've made my position on that clear already.
Well, perhaps not to our audience at home who are just being introduced to this. Would you use alternate pronouns? And why not?
Because I don't believe that other people have the right to determine what language I use, especially when it's backed by punitive legislation. And when the words that are being required are the constructions, they're artificial constructions of people I regard as radical ideologues whose viewpoint I do not share.
Until women got full legal rights, they could own property for themselves, they could work. Essentially, they were owned. They were first owned by their fathers and then by their husbands.
Status to the domination by men. You already said that you thought that what emancipated women primarily in the 20th century was technological revolution.
No, not primarily, but that's one of two. I think that's two things.
Not primarily, eh?
No,
I don't think the pill was a primary force in the emancipation of women.
I think
or the invention of tampons, let's say, or the provision of proper sanitary facilities, toilets, and that sort of thing. You're thinking instead it was the action of courageous feminists in the 1920s that produced a social revolution that overthrew the patriarchy. That's your theory.
Yeah, I think
that's a foolish theory. That's pure narcissism at work, by the way. You know, to hijack an event like this that other people put time and effort into, and to use their civility of the crowd and the civility of the organizers as an excuse to blatantly yell out your ill-informed opinions is no way to conduct a civil dialogue. It's absolutely appalling. The people who do that should be embarrassed.
Yeah, they should be embarrassed because, like, they're basically throwing a tantrum like a 3-year-old, which people call, like, a lot of universities kids these days, perpetual adolescence. They don't grow up, and a lot of universities perpetuate that. When it comes to the pronouns things, if people don't know the C-19 bill that was, I think, passed in Canada, this was the first time, like, we've had hate speech laws before where it prevents you for saying something hateful or prevents you for inciting violence. However, this is the first time there's been a law that I know of that makes you or forces you to say something. And I believe the law is pretty general, and that's the danger of it because it's so generalized. But basically, if you mispronounce someone, then you can be fined or jailed or something like that. Because they call it like a hate crime or something like that. So that is what he was talking about. Like, a government should never have the power to tell you or force you to say something. And then when he was talking about the inventions of birth control, tampons, hygiene, sanitary facilities for women, and even the invention of other birth control, things like condoms, spermicides, and stuff like that, that was a really big reason why women were able to be out of the household and get into the workforce a lot more than they were before. I'm not saying that women had nothing to do with it, but I don't believe they invented the birth control pill, the condoms, spermicide, or tampons, or they were solely responsible for, you know, recreating the sanitary facilities and other sanitary products so women can be able to take care of themselves. A lot of men were behind that, but hey, don't give them any credit. But yeah, like, the feminist movement had something to do with it, but it was definitely not the primary reason why women were able to get out of the homes and work more and have more options with their lives than they had before. Yes, some of it was just the culture at the time, and it probably became the culture because women were limited to what they can do because of periods and pregnancies and deaths in pregnancies and stuff like that. But because of the medical evolutions, birth control, blah, 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 we already talked about it. That was one of the reasons why women could have more choices. But let's continue.
My idea of the patriarchy is a system of male dominance of society.
Yeah, but that's not my sense of the patriarchy.
So what's yours?
Well, in what sense is our society male-dominated?
the fact that the vast majority of wealth is owned by men, the vast majority of capital is owned by men. Women do more unpaid labour.
Very tiny proportion of men, and a huge proportion of people who are seriously disaffected are men. Most people in prison are men. Most people who are on the street are men. Most victims of violent crime are men. Most people who commit suicide are men. Most people who die in wars are men. People who do worse in school are men. It's like, where's the dominance here precisely? What you're doing is you're taking a tiny substrata of hyper-successful men and using that to represent the entire structure of Western society. There's nothing about that that's vaguely appropriate.
But I could say equally well that most rape victims are women. You know, terrible things happen to people of both sexes.
And you could say that with perfect utility, but that doesn't provide any evidence for the existence of a male-dominated patriarchy. I would say that anybody with more than a cursory knowledge of 20th century history who dares to claim simultaneously that they have compassion for the downtrodden and that they're Marxists are revealing either an ignorance of history that's so astounding that it's actually a form of miracle, or a kind of malevolence that's so reprehensible that it's almost unspeakable. Because we already ran the equity experiment over the course of the 20th century, and we already know what the Marxist doctrines have done for oppressed people all around the world, and the answer to that mostly was imprison them, enslave them, work them to death, or execute them. And as far as I can tell, that's not precisely commensurate with any message of compassion. Sorry, tried that, didn't work. We got 100 million corpses to prove it, and that's plenty for me. And if it's not enough for you, well then you should do some serious thinking either about your historical knowledge or about your moral character.
Question for Professor Peterson. Why do you feel that someone's personal gender identity and pronouns infringes your free speech? Can one not also argue, based on your interpretation, that professors can use racial slurs in their classroom and that the inability to do so would violate their freedom of speech?
There's a difference between saying that there's something you can't say and saying that there are things that you have to say. And I regard these made-up pronouns, all of them, as the neologisms of radical PC authoritarians. Do you understand that? And I'm not a fan of that sort of person. And the reason I'm not a fan of that sort of person is because I've done my homework. I've read everything I can get my hands on in the development of authoritarian political systems, and I know the literature inside out and backwards. And I am not going to be a mouthpiece for language that I detest. And that's that.
Jordan Peterson was mad that day. He woke up on the wrong side of his bed. He was like, I am so sick of this fucking question. The woman who asked him the question, I don't know if that was a question like from a student that she was just asking, or if that was her personal question, because if it is, she's playing dumb. Because there's a big difference for saying you can't say this, which is still a slippery slope, to you have to say this. It's a big difference. If she's a professor or teacher herself, I mean, I feel sorry for her students if she's playing that dumb. He was mad. He was big mad. The thing is, like, there are truly trans people out there that just want you to say their pronouns of he, she, they, and that really helps them with their gender dysphoria. On the other hand, there are people that use this as a power trip. Like, I can just give myself a pronoun and now I have power over you to make you say something you don't want to say. And if you don't say it, I have power to destroy your life. I have power to get you imprisoned. I have power to get you fined. A lot of this is just a power trip. Not everybody. There are people who truly are just trans and just like politely, please, this is my pronoun, or this is my name, or this is my gender expression, or whatever. But there are people who use it just as a power trip. Now, going back to the whole, like, you know, male-dominated society, I'm really glad that Jordan Peterson brought up all the statistics that the hardships that men actually have to go through in a society. But the thing is, a lot of feminists, again, always say the world was dominated and controlled by men. Wrong. The world was dominated and controlled by the elite. They were dominated and controlled by a small percentage of people, including men. It was not controlled by all men. It was not controlled by, generally speaking, most of the men. It wasn't even controlled by a large number of men. It was controlled by the elite. That is the language, that is what you appropriately should be saying. So a lot of people try to make it seem like every guy who has a balls and dick control the fucking world, or is like king of the fucking planet. That is not how it worked. That is not how it ever worked. It was controlled by a tiny percentage of people who are called the elite. Get it right. And the whole Marxist thing, when people say, well, no, Marxism and socialism just wasn't done right. Get a life. Like, seriously. It's like, it's always gone wrong every single fucking time it's happened, especially on a large scale. Like, maybe you can find some little hippie commune, but for the most part, it's always ended up in massive genocide and massive death, massive starvation, and power trips. So I don't know what they keep coming up with, like, this just doesn't, it was never done right, besides being brainwashed and indoctrinated by their socialist and Marxist and communist teachers and professors.
This whole patriarchy thing, I think you have no idea how pernicious and dangerous it is.
Well, no, I don't. I really don't. Go on.
Throughout history have fundamentally cooperated to push back against the absolute catastrophe of existence. A terrible death rate, the probability of chronic starvation, early death, disease, the difficulty of raising children with all the death that was associated with that. And to look backwards in time and say, well, basically what happened was men took the upper hand and persecuted women in this tyrannical patriarchy. It's absolutely dreadful misreading of history. It's a terrible thing to teach young women, and it's a horrible thing to inflict upon men.
When the Marxists say, well, that wasn't real Marxism, what it really means, and I've thought about this for a long time, it's the most arrogant possible statement anyone could ever make. It means, if I would have been in Stalin's position, I would have ushered in the damn utopia instead of the genocidal massacres, because I understand the doctrine of Marxism and everything about me is good. It's like, well, think again, sunshine. You don't understand it. You don't understand it. And you're not that good. And if the power was in your hands, assuming you had the competence, which you don't, you wouldn't have done any better. And even if you had, there would have been someone else waiting right behind you to shoot you the first time you actually tried to do anything good. And that's what happened to all the old guard who ran the damn revolution. Stalin rounded them all up and shot them, along with their families and millions of other people. So even if you do happen to be that avatar of moral purity that you claim implicitly, the probability that you'd get to act out your goodness in relationship to those possessed by your ideology is zero.
Is being sensitive to offence such a problem, though? Like, we would have previously called that manners.
It's a terrible problem. So imagine you, okay, so the rule is you can't offend anyone, all right? Let's say you're speaking to one person, I can't offend you. All right, fair enough. What if I'm speaking to 10 people? Do I get to offend 1 in 10? How about 1 in 100? How about 1 in 1,000? You're going to come out on stage and you're going to say something important about something vital, and you're not going to offend 1 person in 1,000? Well, you can't say anything about anything important ever without offending probably the person you're talking to. Important speech about important issues, especially contentious issues, is instantly offensive.
That was from Trigger Happy Media once again. You know, go support the channel if you like. He's the one who put the compilation together, I'm assuming. That was really good. I really liked the last example that he said. I've seen that clip before, and I actually use that when people bring up the whole PC, not hurting people's feelings and being polite. If we live in a world like that, then conversations will completely just come to a halt, which is usually what people who use that type of rhetoric wants to do. They just want to shut down conversations. There's no human right to not get offended, to not hear something offensive. Like, that's just life. Like, grow up and get over it. Like, when it's personal, when it's friends on friends, or your lover, or your relationship with your family members, yeah, you would hope that they would care enough to not hurt your feelings or try to maybe say things in a way that doesn't trigger you. But in everyday life, like, grow up. Like if you're gonna have a hard conversation or a serious conversation, what we should be all wanting to do to like strengthen our intellectual abilities, you're gonna hear something you don't like, and that's okay. Like, it's not gonna kill you. I love the thing that he said about like the whole like, look, the world has come a long way. Society has improved and evolved and progressed quite a bit, even though a lot of progressives like to pretend it hasn't. but life used to be really difficult. It used to be very, very hard. Survival was really, really difficult. Birth, like women would die at birth. People didn't live that long. It was a difficult, harsh life to live, and men and women both went through that together. They both suffered equally but differently. So to pretend again that men has just been sitting back with their hands behind their head, toking on a cigar, just living like life and luxury, while women again were just a squalor, like, you know, fighting hogs or something. I don't know what the example I'm using right now, but to pretend that men has always had it good, that is a fucking lie. People suffered. Life was hard. Like, there used to be no laws. Like, rape and murder and stealing was not a law at some point. Like, life was difficult and everybody suffered in it. Like, again, some people suffered differently, but everyone suffered at some point in different ways, but equally, you know what I mean? But and the whole, like, people thinking that, well, if I was in charge of socialism, Marxism, communism, totalitarianism, I would do it right. First of all, anybody who wants to be in charge of that probably is corruptible, because most of the times people who want the power shouldn't have the power. So you probably wouldn't do it right. You probably would just fuck it up like everybody else that came before you. Anyway, I really liked that video. I wouldn't say it was savage. I would say it was more like common sense, but I understand titling is more eye-catching. It definitely caught my eye. Tell me guys, what do you think about Dr. Peterson? What was your favorite clip in that whole compilation? Like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell to get the notifications when I do upload. All that helps with the algorithm, guys. Helps me grow, helps me bring you more entertainment. Also, if you like to support this channel, you can donate. My PayPal me link is in the description box below and also in the comment section. You don't have to, you can just like, comment, subscribe, but it just helps. And I also have a travel vlog channel. If you want to see where I am in the world, you can go to the description box below and also in the comment section. Hit the link, go subscribe to my travel channel, and follow me on Instagram. My stories is usually what's most up to date. And you guys have an amazing day. Bye.